Hello, this is Dr. Teresa Regan, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Autism in the Adult. I am happy that you're joining us for this series called Talking About Autism. This is the second episode, and I had originally predicted it was going to be about talking to others when you see autistic characteristics in them and you wonder if a diagnostic evaluation would be helpful for them. What happened is that as I'm mulling around the topics for the series, I really couldn't get my mind off what was going to be the third episode, which I'm going to call Navigating Emotional Atmospheres when we're talking about autism.
It's hard to listen to music.
Autism.
Channel. There we go. There. Now I need duck. And nope. Okay, got this. Soon. YouTube it on me. Right here. Right here. Okay. That right here. Mm, 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 mm.
Your
Good day, my lovely listeners. You are listening to the ●●● podcast. Tune in every week to explore inspiring stories and insightful information that dive headfirst into the world of autism and mental health. With all those tantalizing tongue twisters out of the way, let's get into the show. Today's podcast episode is proudly sponsored by ●●●, the award-winning app designed to support neurodivergent people just like yourself with routine and scheduling. Head to your app store and type ●●● to learn more.
good day, cool cats. Welcome back to another episode of the ●●● podcast, of course, with your host, Mr. Thomas Henley. Today, we're going to be talking about diversity in autistic people. And I'm not talking about neurodiversity, the difference between non-autistic people and autistic people. I'm talking about the differences in that group. Throughout my time on YouTube and social media, diversity among the spectrum has become more and more apparent. I did have a good idea of how different autistic people can be from each other, but I'm astounded every time that I do talk to an autistic person. Just how different they are in terms of their skills, their mental health, the things that they struggle with, the things that they're good at. Today, I'm joined by a YouTuber with a lot of cool specialized videos on autism and the many types of sensory differences. She's author of the online book, I Think I'm Autistic. She also has a community-focused website for connecting autistic people together and strives to educate people on neurodiversity, but also support self-diagnosed and late-diagnosed teens and adults. It's Jess from the Holistic Autistic account. How are you doing?
I am great. Thank you.
And this is our a second attempt at doing it, doing the podcast. We got quite far into it. Well, not quite far. We got about
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
about 5 minutes into it, yeah. But sometimes with this website that I'm using, it can be a bit difficult to set it up and get everything sorted out so that you can actually speak on it. But we're here now. How are you doing today?
I'm really great. Yes. I'm super excited.
Great. We're just like not knowing when
I'm
it's
stimming
when it's
already.
that time.
Super excited
Yeah.
to do this.
So yeah, would you like to give everybody sort of like a brief background to who you are, what you do for a job, and what you do online?
Yes. So I'm Jess again. I'm 24 years old, and I was diagnosed autistic at 23, about almost a year a year after self-diagnosing, when I was 22. But I grew up in South Carolina, even though I was born in California. I live with my mom and my sister and my dad. And I started thinking that I was autistic when I was 22, started researching more into it. And because of all of the support and encouragement and friends that I made through the online autistic community on Instagram, when I first got diagnosed, I felt like I had all this stuff that had helped me get to that point, and it wasn't like it was just the beginning of everything.
Beginning of a journey.
Yeah, yeah. And so I wanted to kind of do the same thing for other people who would be questioning that they are autistic, because as a late diagnosed person, you've been through a lot of your life wondering what's wrong with you, if there's like other like mental illnesses that you have or identity disorders that you have or whatever. And then when you realize, oh, I'm just autistic, then it really helps to have so much support. And so that's what I wanted to do with Holistic Autistic.
I understand what you mean. Like, just from my experience at school and stuff, I think there's a lot of ways that autistic people kind of frame themselves and the world around them when they don't know or don't understand what autism is.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I used to have quite a big sort of delusion that I was some kind of some kind of like otherworldly being,
Mm-hmm.
or an alien or something like that.
Yeah, we really identify with aliens a lot. I think that
Mm,
like every autistic I've ever met always like uses that as some kind. And every time I meet someone who talks about like feeling like an alien, it's always in the back of my mind, like, maybe they're autistic too.
don't
But
really understand.
yeah.
One question that I did want to ask you was, what kind of encouraged you to write your book?
Well, I had the idea when I was looking up autistic like adult resources and not finding that much for people who are recently diagnosed as adults. Even if you look for books for autistic adults, it's mostly books about autistic teens and adults for the parents.
Yes.
There's one book that I read, and it was written for the parents of these like autistic teens and how to deal with stuff that they face, which is great and needed, but I couldn't really find too much for actual autistic people who either were diagnosed as an adult or haven't even been diagnosed yet. And I basically said, what would have helped me when I was 22, like thinking that I was autistic and not being able to find anything other than like the stereotypical stuff and reading like basically just one page from the DSM.
Mm. Yeah, there's definitely not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
resources out there for autistic adults. It's either, as you said, towards the parents, but it's also, kind of towards, I guess, sort of support workers or counselors or anything like that. It's never